What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the greatest show on YouTube, Three Black Heathens Show. But as you can see, if you're looking at your monitors right now, y'all see we have a special guest because Drag Wife wouldn't let him come on tonight. We have with us Chris Vaughn, my main man, coming drag place tonight. Last week I guess all of us were very busy. We had some issues going on, so we kind of missed last week, and we kind of had that. But we're actually glad to be back this week, and eventually, like we all said, we're going to be eventually doing 2 to 3 shows a week once we get everything grooving again. But tonight is a great show. We're going to be basically talking about all of the California forest fires and all of the stupid things that your favorite president said about it. He can't help it. He's stupid. And we're going to talk about the election. So me and Chris is going to open the floor basically with your favorite quotes from your favorite president, Donald Trump. So, Chris, what? First of all, before me and Chris even take the floor, first of all, and I want you to introduce yourself before we can get off anything, Chris, and tell everybody about yourself. But before we even get off of that, I want to say to the families in California who have lost, because the count is, I'm doing different counts on different channels, but I want to say, really a big, I don't know, you lose family members. It's hard to really say, you say condolences to people, but I think it should be something greater that could be said about people losing their lives like that. I mean, people always send condolences. Some people send prayers. We know prayer don't work. Obviously, prayer don't work because people are losing their lives, and this is the worst fire in California, American history, really. I'm definitely, I'm not going to say I'm sending prayers to the families, but condolences and everything else that we could send out. I just send that to these family members. But Chris, you can have the floor now, man. You introduce yourself to the people. Let us know about you, blah, blah. If you have a channel or your thoughts on what do you think about religion? What do you think about politics? What do you think about the way of the world today? Just the floor is yours, Chris.
Yeah, let the people know who you are, man.
Well, you see me by the name I am. A few people may know about my channel, but right now, I really don't want to advertise it because there's really nothing going on. The channel I want to have is be more of a fabrication and building channel. And once I tool up, that's what I'm going to introduce myself as to the world, so to speak. I am an atheist. As far as, religion is concerned, I'm pretty straightforward about it with most people. It's just some people I don't feel like getting into an argument with, so I don't bring it up, but I'm definitely not one that's hidden. Political affiliations, right now, they're very fluid because I'm very disappointed with the Democrats. I want nothing to do with the Republicans, so I really don't know where I stand, to be honest. I guess mainly I want to be known as a fabricator eventually on YouTube, not necessarily a loudmouth atheist just yet. But we can get right to that wildfire thing, man. I got some choice words for 45. I don't, it's just, maybe you want to, start, get things going because I want to come in after what you're saying.
All right, no doubt. We just wanted to. This is just the introduction because you're new. You're our guest host, so we got to make sure it's all good with you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Let people know who you are.
Exactly.
I want to say,
exactly.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for what you committed today.
No, listen. Thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? So here we go. So we're going to do now. Let's transition over. So the first clip we're going to show tonight is just a news report of what's going on in California and the death toll. And then the second clip is we're going to see what Trump says is responsible for the forest fires. So hold your belts, but we're going to let me just set this up so we can all see it. And here we go. So we are going to here we are, first clip, death toll, and you'll see who it's from right now. Here you guys go. 1 second.
Good evening, I'm Elaine Quijano. It started 10 days ago as a brush fire in a remote area and soon exploded into the worst wildfire in California's history. The death toll, now in the dozens, is rising daily. The number of missing persons has climbed at an alarming and perplexing rate. The Northern California town of Paradise is essentially gone. President Trump on Saturday saw the devastation for himself, again suggesting better forest management could prevent such disasters. Governor Jerry Brown responded on Face the Nation.
And the president's talked about how our forests are managed. That's an element. But there's also the way the houses are built, the materials, what kind of vegetation is around. And then there's also the changing climate, the increasing drought, and the lowered humidity and water vapor.
Meg Oliver now on the staggering losses and questions about the missing.
As the search continues for human remains in Paradise, the number of people still unaccounted for has soared to more than 1,200.
But when you hear the fact that more than 1,200 people are unaccounted for, does that indicate the death toll is going to continue to climb?
We've had a massive evacuation. Over 40,000 people were displaced from their homes, and they were spread out through Northern California. All of the normal means of keeping in contact with friends and family have been disrupted.
So this list could be inflated.
It could. This is a dynamic situation.
The sheriff says that's because the list may include duplicate names, people unaware they're on the list, and reunions that haven't been reported. The campfire has burned over 149,000 acres. 9,700 homes have been destroyed. More than 46,000 people were evacuated. At least 76 people were killed. Sunday, hundreds of displaced residents lined up for FEMA assistance. Many of them lost everything.
So that was the what's been going on, and I think the death toll now is at not the death, well, the death toll is like 60 or something like that, but the missing is like 1,100 people missing. So it's really, really bad from what's been going on. So this is what Trump has said about what's been going on. So he said in a tweet. So here's CNN clip. That was CBS we just watched. Here's CNN telling us what Trump has said. The reason why these forest fires are happening.
There is no reason for these massive, deadly, and costly forest fires in California except that forest management is so poor. He accuses officials of mismanaging the forests and adds, quote, remedy now or no more Fed payments. I want to get Tom Sater in here from the CNN Severe Weather Center. And Tom, some West Coast firefighters had an answer for the president. I want to read part of it to you. The head of the Pasadena Fire Association writing, Mr. President, with all due respect, you are wrong. The fires in SoCal are urban interface fires and have nothing to do with forest management. Come to SoCal and learn the facts and help the victims. Tom, a strong statement there from the California firefighters. Fact check President Trump's tweet for us.
Okay, I enjoy being in the weather department because it's neutral, with the exception of climate change issues. But, staying out of the political arena, this is wrong on so many levels. They're right. This has nothing to do with forest management. I mean, look, we're not looking at dense forest here, especially down in Malibu. But forest management has nothing to do with mountain winds coming down the passes at 70 miles per hour or humidity levels in 1 hour dropping Thursday from 35% down in the single digits, drier than most deserts. But again, if you think about it, to say remedy now or we'll take your funds, he's already taken some of their funds. But I read a tweet that followed that one that makes good sense. It said, it's like taking funds from the National Hurricane Center until you stop all these hurricanes. I mean, it's the same notion. But more importantly, people died in their homes. They found bodies outside the homes, in their vehicles, trying to flee, outside their vehicles, just trying to run away. We've got a problem here because even though the winds may lighten tomorrow for the northern area and the campfire, they're going to remain strong to the south. And I think by Tuesday, we may see the winds pick up just like we did on Thursday, where the fires to the north of the campfire were burning 8 football fields every minute. High pressure Santa Ana winds keeping the rain out of the area. We should have 5 to 6 inches of rain since the beginning of October. We haven't had a drop. So again, there's fingerprints of climate change there. But as those winds come down these mountains, they dry up. They come across this very dry land. They also heat up because the air is compressing. The worst elements you want. Look at the western U.S. Here's snow up in the areas of the Rockies. There's not a cloud around. That is the plume on
So that is the CNN meteorologist explaining to us how climate change is really directing the way this this drought has been going, and obviously the dry conditions are going to lead to fires. So, Imp, I'll give it to you. Is President Trump right? Is California being mismanaged into fires?
What kind of stupid question is that?
That's what he says. What do you think? It's the question of the day.
Donald Trump is stupid. I'm just gonna, and then I'm gonna go into why he's so stupid. Going all the way back, man, to the 50s, the 40s, forest fires been. I'm from California. Forest fires been going in California for years, for centuries. Probably before any human was even out there. As long as it was trees out in that particular part of the geographical area of the country, it's always been forest fires. It has nothing to do with forest management. It has nothing to do with Smokey the Bear, telling people to, to not burn stuff. We don't need Smokey the Bear, anything like that. It has something to do with just what this professional said. You have certain winds out in California. It's a drier atmosphere. It's a drier weather, which can cause friction, which just cause forest fires. It's not even about what we used to think. People just going into the forest and just setting fires. A lot of times that's not even the case. A lot of cases, it's natural atmospheric pressure, different altitudes, different things going on with the weather. As far as forest management, now I'm going to say this. The only thing I think the forest management could do, maybe they could hire more people. You know what I mean? They probably could hire more people to, I guess, get more people in trucks and vans to actually monitor these forests. But then again, that's kind of not really an adequate thing to do, because you're talking about. But see, well, that's what I'm saying.
How can hire? That's what I'm saying. He's saying, they're the reason why these forest fires are going on. Hiring more people ain't going to help. Ain't going to stop a forest fire.
See, well, I'm trying to make sense out of it some kind of way, because hiring more people and I guess and getting more trucks and vans out there, maybe we can have more people circling this, because you're talking about miles of forest fire. And some people have been complaining that we don't have enough forest workers in these particular parts of California. So, I mean, that's the only thing I could say, man. Hire more people, monitor better.
I don't know. Chris, what do you think? Because you said you had something interesting to say. What's up?
Okay, it ain't really nothing interesting. This motherfucker broke it all the way down to y'all ain't raking your leaves. You're trifling. Get some fucking leaves up. Maybe I'll give you some money.
Yeah, he did say that shit about the leaves. You remember that? Did you hear that, Imp?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
He's stupid.
That's a level beyond stupid. That's something with I just don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? That's coupled with, man. That's not just stupidity. I don't care about the American people. I am completely convinced that he just doesn't care, and he's trying to do everything he can to break this country down. That's just my opinion, man.
But the thing is, I gotta ask you though. It's like, all right, he's saying his argument is that climate change doesn't have this much of an effect. You can't blame this on climate change. Is he correct, Chris? Do you agree with him?
No, I mean, I've seen grass fires in different warm states just pop up on the freeway, just from dry matter.
That's right. That's right.
You think that can't happen across a wide swath in California? The man just said, the newscaster said the humidity was at levels that you find in the desert.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Good humidity level. That means anything that needs water is going to suck all it can up, and when there's no more, it's just going to dry it out. Like, how do you not understand?
That's right.
You have dry things and a hot sun beating on it all day. Something is going to happen somewhere. And I don't understand how a sitting president doesn't understand. I mean, it was one thing to say he's stupid, but somebody around him should be able to explain this.
Chris, you forgot one thing. Well, first of all, he doesn't have a lot of intelligent people around. Secondly, this is also the same president that's basically he has a religious mind, whether he's or not. He, from a religious standpoint, he speaks from a theocracy standpoint. Not only that, he's anti-science. He also denies global warming. So whether the argument is real about global warming or not, we do know that there is some type of change in the climate, which we've talked about this before. But he straight denies it like there's nothing going on. So he's not really a scientific guy. He's not smart at all, you know. So I mean, I don't really expect. I follow him on Twitter. I have fun following him on Twitter. He makes my day with all the stupid comments. I have fun listening to him. So I don't take him serious as a POTUS. I actually just accept him as a comedian. That's his 45th. I call him the 45th comedian. And I don't take him serious. I really don't.
Of course not. Who's gonna take that clown serious? It's funny because it's sad. I think Trump is the top con man ever in the game. Yeah. You talk about con man. He's like the top con man ever. He cons everybody to the presidency. Because
how does he con anybody though, man?
Because like for instance, he doesn't want you to see his tax returns because he knows you see his tax returns, you're going to see what type of money he really got. You can't hide it because if it's on the tax returns, it's good, and that's why he don't want you to see the tax returns. He don't want you to see them because he know it's the truth in them, he can't just lie his way out of that. So guess what? You don't get to see him. Think about this. Every presidential candidate since the 1970s has given you their full tax returns. This guy said you can't even see his. Period. No questions asked. No, but. It's that type of, I think, and what is it? Washington Post said he has like 3,000 lies or something like that, right? He was going on 88 a day or something like that. This guy is a pathological liar. But I don't see how his fans or his sycophants think anything less of it. You know what I'm saying? I just don't know. I just
understand the state of mind where you can face embarrassment after embarrassment after embarrassment and still go back and do the same things that got you embarrassed the first time. Like, I know he has to feel something when someone says you're wrong and this is why, and it's completely undeniable that he's wrong. Now, you read, little blurs about he's having hissy fits in the office. How many times you have to go through that before you say, hey, maybe I should check on this thing before I speak? Right. You've been doing that? Like, come on, man. When do you learn?
I don't know. I think the guy is like insane, man. I think the guy's just insane, and he's president.
He's somebody's president. He's not mine, but
yeah.
But the thing is, man, and I don't want to. Well, since we're talking about Trump, I guess we could kind of like talk about the red and blue wave that happened in midterms, man. Now, as far as Georgia and Florida, which were the main ones since I am in Atlanta, Stacey Abrams, the update, she went on and conceded. She made it last for a while, but she just conceded yesterday to Brian Kemp. But the thing about in Georgia, I want to talk about the elections in Georgia. The thing about Stacey Abrams, of course, y'all know the history about it. She was the first black female governor anywhere. First black governor of Georgia, period. But the thing about it, the law is very clear that Brian Kemp was the Secretary of State here in Georgia, and he ran as governor. Number one rule is the Secretary of State is like a middleman to any particular voting process, and it is a job of the Secretary of State to make sure both sides get a fair shake, make sure voting booths are in the right area, make sure voting booths have cords, so forth and so on. So he did not step down as Secretary of State when he ran against Stacey Abrams, which was already a violation within itself, but these people down in Georgia didn't really care. This is a pure red state. Y'all know where Georgia is. But the thing is, I think she's suing. She could easily win a suit. They're probably gonna hush her up and just give her some money and try to make her go away. But the thing is, man, that's just what's going on. Cricket politics is a business, and we all know that it's not to be taken serious. Some people say, well, we should get out there and vote, and everybody got hyped this time. And this is another thing why I don't like the Democrats either. And Nate, I know you love the Democratic Party and all of that. And
yeah, I'm a Democrat,
but this is the
man.
Huh?
I'm a Democrat. I'm sorry.
So
I said I'm a Democrat.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
I know, man. I'm going to get you away from that garbage too.
What would you? What about? Who am I going to vote for? I'm going to vote for the Republicans. That's who I'm going to vote for. I got to vote for somebody.
No. I hate the Republicans. The Republicans are even worse. The Republicans are worse. But the thing is, I don't think anyone basically should just have a Democratic mind in this country or a Republican mind. And you know what? We should have a show about that. But this is my thing about the Democrats, and this is what I don't like about the Democrats. They ride waves. In other words, Trump won. Obama did 8 years he did 8 years. He won 2 terms. The Democrats, we ain't got to do nothing no more. Hillary Clinton, she's going to easily win. Well, she was a crook, and I wouldn't have voted for Hillary anyway. But the Democrats got real lax. Donald Trump wins. Now everybody's shocked. Fox News, CNN, everybody going crazy. They couldn't believe Donald Trump won. It was a shock to the world. Everybody like they woke up in a nightmare. So in doing these midterms, everybody got hyped. They pushed it again like it was 2008. Let's go vote. Let's do this. And they did get the House. Democrats did get the House. And I'm glad to see my sister back up in the House because she finna give them hell. She finna get an orange president hell, Maxine Waters. Oh, yeah. And I can't wait to see that because she finna give that orange guy hell. But to me, it's like the whole political system as a whole. It's like it's phony. It's phony. The brother down in Florida didn't win, and the governor that he ran against, Gilliam ran against in Florida, straight racist. Things he did, the people he supported, the money he took, and guess what, man? We still lost, So I don't have a lot of faith in the political system.
But Barack won, no?
Me personally, Nate, I take a cue from the Asians, and I think, and we used to actually do this before the Asians as Black people. We actually used to do this in the 30s, and the 40s, and the 50s. I mean, not just in Oklahoma, Black Wall Street. We did it all over. We did it in Florida. We did it in North Carolina. We had communities where the dollar actually multiplied within our communities. And then, I'm not going to blame it on King. I'm not going to blame, I'm not going to throw no finger at the civil rights movement and say that they did this and did that. But y'all know what I'm saying. As time went on,
yeah, we got you.
We got involved in segregation. We wanted to be one country. We wanted to hold hands and kiss, and our dollars went away. But that didn't happen with the Asians. The Asians were treated crazy over here, especially out west. The Chinese, they helped build the railroads. But when the Chinese got on their foot, they didn't try to do that. They didn't try to segregate. And I think this is an error that we made, and it was a terrible error. And the Asians are not a part of the political process.
You know what?
And look at them.
I want to say one thing, which is an interesting fact on this.
Go ahead. You
know the case Plessy versus Ferguson? Have you guys ever heard of Plessy versus Ferguson?
That
was the case that established the separate but equal doctrine. You can have separate accommodations, but they have to be equal.
Right.
And after that, they were never equal. They were always separate, but they were never equal. But the law that didn't allow Plessy to ride on the train actually allowed Asians to ride on with whites because it said that you had to be 1/16 African descent, which Asians weren't. So Asians were actually able to ride with whites, and black people who were citizens of the country weren't able to ride in certain cars by law because of this, which shows you how fucked up this country was to black people at one point in time.
What you mean at one point in time?
No, I'm talking about during slavery. I'm talking about during the slavery era. Now, I still think. Don't get me wrong. I still think we have issues. No, we got a lot of issues. You watch some of my videos, but I think no one can deny there's been improvement. We're not there yet, but we're not like where we was at before. Like we're not living in the '60s, for instance. I don't know. How do you brothers feel about that? There's been some progress, no?
Oh, okay. George Wallace was a Democrat.
Thought about the same stuff as my grandfather, man. With these government officials being hyper violent with us.
I know that's right.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like I still got the same problems in that regard.
Well, yeah,
I agree.
I do think so. But let's not forget, we're what, 2 years removed out of the first black man being president and a black woman being first lady. You know, we've come a long way. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't happening in Lincoln's time. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't happening in the 60s. We're talking about, I think we as a country have come a long way. And it's good to recognize the fact that, yeah, you know, we've come to a certain place. But that doesn't mean we've come far enough. And I think that's the part that we always struggle with. The fact that the other side, when you talk about like Laura Ingraham and the people on Fox News, they talking about, look at it, everything is equal. You guys are all right. You know, stop complaining. But the fact of the matter is, when you steal a people's wealth and their identity, and then you say, well, now we're going to make everything equal. No, because you took everything from us. You stole everything from us, and now you're talking about now let's do it equally. It's like me giving you this, you know, 100-foot race, 100-foot start in a race, and then say, okay, but now let's start the race, you know, with me all the way back here. I think that's the issue that we're going through now. How far, how far, you know, when is enough? And the fact of the matter is, I think that the other side doesn't realize that we're still suffering. You know, right now, we are still suffering, and they fail to see that suffering. They think we should just be okay with where we're at. I don't know. I got very preachy right there. I was about to ask for an amen on the show right now.
And as I see that, it seems like every progress you do make, you know, there's a pullback in some other way. Anytime we make a few steps forward, we got to get tripped up some kind of way. And it's frustrating. We got people telling you, yeah, you can do it. And then these impediments are put in your path. You know, sometimes you find a way to navigate them, and people don't, you know, put enough emphasis on that. Some of us learn to navigate the system. Some of us learn to get away through it, but we don't reach back enough times. And too many times we look down upon these people because they don't have the knowledge that we were given, you know, and to bring people up. And I'm not like that. I can't help everybody.
You know,
I'm trying to help the folks I can.
Well, let me tell you guys something messed up that I realized. You know, like when I say Africans, I mean people from Africa, from the African continent, are very racist against black people from the United States. Like really racist.
Not all of them.
Of course not. Of course not. I'm not talking about overgeneralizing, but like really, like, you know, they believe that and I'm just gonna tell you the common themes. They say they're lazy. They have this. My wife's father. He really has not a high opinion on African Americans from the United States, and it's funny because my family from Trinidad. They don't either. And my friends from Jamaica, they don't either. It seems like we got like a bad reputation.
Nate, we got to keep this in. You know, we always keep it in real talk. I actually don't have a high opinion of Black Americans either.
Damn.
And I'm a Black. I mean, we just got to keep it.
I don't got a high opinion of them either.
I don't. I'm gonna tell you why.
We need a better publicist. That's what we need.
Yeah. We're gonna keep it real. We're going to keep it 100. And now we're not talking about generalization. When compared, because there also has to be a limit, a type of limit of how long we can use, you know, psychological conscience. When you actually look at a lot of, and think about it, now a lot of Africans, probably majority of Africans are basically brainwashed. They're brainwashed too. They believe, you know, they have this inferiority complex. But a lot of them, they actually come over here, man. They actually seek education. They work hard. They do work hard. We know Jamaicans work hard. We know a lot of the islanders have a different mindset than we do. Now, why is that? Why do a lot of brothers from the islands and sisters from the island have a different mindset? They have more of a work mentality, entrepreneurship mindset. Now, why is that? Even though you have a lot of Black Americans with a entrepreneur mindset, but I think as a whole, Black Americans are comfortable. And Nate, I'm going to tell you what I think that. You know, I think one of the major problems why we're so comfortable in this country and we don't actually go for a lot of things that Africans do. But first of all, the Africans have to because they're coming from third world. See, this is another point that we don't never put into the equation. a lot of these Africans and islanders are coming from environments that are way worse than we grew up in. Even though we grew up in ghettos of California, Detroit, Chicago, when you look at the third world situation, they grow up in a much stronger. It's worse. So I think their thriving is better. Just like we used to be back in the 20s and 30s. We had so much heat on us back in the 20s and 30s. We had better people. We had a better mindset in Black America to strive more, to go to school, to actually educate ourselves in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. If you go back and actually look at the stats of college ratio, Black college ratio, I'm talking about 30s and 40s, Nate. You look at the Black college ratio, the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and look at the Black graduation college ratios, it's specifically of Black men. You see that it was much higher amongst Black Americans in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. A lot of people don't know that. What happened? What happened? Well, we didn't have a such thing as a welfare system back then. We didn't have crutches that we actually depend on. Now, in today's society, we get in projects. These people created projects, and these particular projects and welfare and food stamps was not something that we were supposed to get and stay on, but it was something that we was actually supposed to use as a stepping stone to better ourselves, but most of us didn't. Now, I know most white people. Too, say what, Nate?
So that was a good point too. That's a good point.
I mean, that's just why is that? So the question is, why do? Which I think we could answer these questions. Why is it a difference of mentality from Black Americans, Africans, and Islanders?
Well, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead, Chris.
I think it's different in environments. You touched on it. They come from, you got to understand, these people come from more homogenous societies as well.
Yeah.
That's true.
Interact with people the way and navigate things where you're at a disadvantage like we are. You have to understand, it's like the wave of white people calling the police on us for just doing inane things and getting our ass, getting a shot. They don't have to deal with that in their own countries. They don't have to navigate those landmines. And it's a big difference. Also, because they didn't have to face these things that my great-grandparents did, my grandparents did, my parents did, they don't feel it as much. There's an online personality. She uses this term, descendants of slaves, right? There is going to be a big difference. Slavery wasn't that long ago. It was a few people ago. My great-grandmother died in she died in 1963. She was 103 years old. Okay? That was my great-grandma. She died 10 years before I was born. Slavery is not as far away as we think it is. My people are very long-lived people. If I get healthy, I might last a while. My grandfather lasted until he was in his 90s.
Right.
Wow.
It's not, there's still these things, and that you think that's true for my family. It's true for a racist family who wants to own us again. They come from a family of slave owners. You think that they're going to be very helpful to Black people in this country, being raised with those ideals through generation to generation to generation? Where do you think all these guys marching down to South Carolina and all this Proud Boy shit is coming from? That's their grandfathers talking. That's their great-grandfathers talking. So people who are immigrants from other countries, they don't have to deal with that shit, of course, going to have a different attitude than us. Now, there's some Black folks, you just can't help them. They're going to do what the hell they want to do, and that's everything wrong. But I shouldn't be judged because they're the loudmouths who you see all the time. There are plenty of Black people. I work with them every day. I work around lawyers. Though I'm not one, I see lawyers. I see judges. I see deputies. I see people every day doing their job the way they're supposed to do it, and these are Black people. Educated in whatever they're doing, I see them doing it and doing it well. So yes, when some dummy has to come before this level of Black excellence to say why I did these crimes, it makes me feel bad to see that kind of thing. Because somebody didn't reach down the hand and say, hey, let me help you. Let me show you that you don't have to do this. Now, some people are going to look at that and, like I said, they're going to do what the fuck they want. But I'm not going to sit back and say I'm embarrassed of my people because of it. I just understand that there's many things that sometimes people just can't get over those obstacles, and they just don't know what to do, and there's nobody there to show them.
I am going to push back on both your points. To Emperor Atheist's point, first I'll start with the point of these countries that don't have this racial component to it, where you have two races, but in somewhere like Nigeria, where the country is divided on religious grounds between Muslims who control one part of the country and Christians who control the other part of the country. And then you do have ethnic cleansing in Africa, let's say Somalia, when the United Nations had to step in and stop I think the Tutsis from killing the other tribe. So even to the point where it's death, they want to enslave these other people in death. And still, I'm not saying we're like Somalia, but it's not like this is just a unique thing for the United States. There are countries, the Japanese did it to the Chinese, for instance. So, if with that said, I think you can overcome that. I do agree with those countries being homogenized, but I still think that here it's so pronounced in the sense of the black and white. It's such a contrast in the way we're not only treated, but that's the way society sees us. And I think that's the real issue, is that in the media and the news, whenever a black person does something, it's generally looked at as a criminal, as this type of thing. More black men are in prison than are in college. I remember, even though that's a false stat, that was the thinking of the American public at a particular time. So that kind of drives the way we're treated in society as a whole. And
I'll give you an example locally for me, and I just want to pay attention to a lot. We're in the local news that there's a constant trend in my area. I live in Detroit, and there's a suburban area, right? Any crime that's committed in Detroit by a black person, you get 1,000 comments saying things like typical, and this always happens, and we was canged, right? All that bullshit, right? Then there's a trend of molesters in suburbia who happen to be white, and it's 4 or 5 a week, and no one will address this problem. No one will say, hey, what about this white on white crime? What about this guy and this trend of molesters, 4 and 5 a week, every week, and you're constantly saying typical in this, typical that, and look, every insult they can subliminally towards black people, but nobody gives a shit that these guys are raping kids all fucking week.
Well, one thing though, for Emperor Atheist, you mentioned welfare, and particularly and how that seemed to be a crutch, and it seems like I think Jesus Lord even agreed with you in the chat. But then, what do you say to critics that'll say, well, there are more white people on welfare than there are black people? Now, even though black people there may be a large percentage of the population, but that is a true fact. There are much more white people than black people on welfare. So what about that? If that was the case, then wouldn't that also trend to the white side too?
That's not a good stat to use. That's a fallacy, because even though there are more white people on welfare than black people, when we're talking about per capita, you're talking about 13.8% of black people in this country. Okay, white people maybe like by 70.5% make up of this country. Of course, by default, there's more white people on welfare than it is black people. The only way in hell, it would take every black person in America to be on welfare to outnumber the people of white people on welfare. So that's not a great stat.
No, because there are more black people in jail than there are white people. By sheer number.
Well, when you talk about sheer numbers, we need to bring those stats up again too, because when you go to states like Utah and places like that, I mean, those are numbers that you actually have to bring into play to actually say, well, is there more black men locked up than white men? And then when we do those stats again, we know this for a fact. We know that same crimes committed by whites, they are given more time. Blacks are given more time than they are of whites. We know these to be a fact. But when we're talking about numbers like welfare, we're talking about a bigger number of people. You're talking about prison. I mean, Jim Crow was created after slavery to lock black men up. So we understand this to be a fact, but we're talking about welfare. These are two different things. That's kind of like it's a non sequitur. When we're talking about welfare, I don't think we should always look at that. That's just like, I'm gonna tell you something else, Nate. That's just like we say, Chris even just brought it up. When we talk about white on white crime, people say, well, y'all always talking about black on black crime. They say, well, what about white on white crime? Whites kill each other at alarming rates too. But see, this is the thing about that. And that's another, I think, is a bad comparison. Because when we go across the country, when we actually compare these things, when we talk about black on black crime, when we talk about black on black murders, black on black rape, things like that. When we actually crunch the numbers, you don't too tough go into Jewish communities or Irish communities or Italian communities or just regular white communities and see things like you see in Chicago or LA. You don't see that amongst white people. You know what I mean? So when you're talking about right, you understand what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, no. Hold on. I do want to say. Hold on.
All communities do that. And the thing is, we don't look at is you hurt the people that's closest to you. You hurt the people that you can get to easy. The ones that people won't say, "Hey, stop that guy." A black guy going to a white neighborhood trying to rape anybody. It ain't gonna happen because people are like, "Hey, what the hell you doing over here?" Hey, somebody call the police on that guy. He looks out of place.
He's in the wrong spot.
Johnny walking down the street, sneaking through somebody's window, hurting a kid. Well, he looks like somebody's supposed to be out there by virtue of having the right skin color. Well, nothing's going to happen to him.
Isn't that what that reminds me of what happened to Trayvon Martin? He was walking around a neighborhood that was too nice for a black kid to be walking around in. And he must have been doing something wrong, and that's why he got shot. But I'm saying, but it was a neighborhood that people thought it was, too rich for black people to live in. That's why when he saw him, he was like, this guy looks out of place. He's black. This kid is out. He's obviously out of place. And then, come to find out his parents did live there in the complex. So,
this is the thing, but that's true. But this is the thing, though, Nate. This is the thing with me when we talk about these stats, whether it's black men in prison or whether it's who has more people on welfare. I think when we try to, it's like the fallacy, well, about you say, well, you too. It's like the Me Too thing. In other words, I think black people, because we look at these stats, black crime is really okay. It's really okay because people kill each other too. I don't think that's a great way to look at it, and I don't think we're gonna ever solve anything amongst our youth killing each other when we keep trying to compare and say, well, white people killing each other too. We ain't gonna never get out this crutch with that type of thinking. We'll never get out this type of crush and say, well, there's more white people on welfare than there's black, but we might as well stay on welfare. See, I think that's a bad thought process. We should be more financially, should be willing to try stats to nobody else. We should be trying to get ourselves out of these particular ruts.
Chris, I'm just muting you because you got a lot of background noise. It was cutting improv off. Sorry. Go ahead, Imp.
And in that challenge, it's just the case. Yeah, somebody got some bad background noise.
No, it was Chris. It kept cutting you off, so I muted him. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, so I just don't think it's a good thing for us to do. You know what I mean? We should try to fix ourselves. Stop trying to compare our numbers and crunch numbers to make it seem like we okay. Our numbers are okay. And that's just not reality. And we're going to have to face reality sooner or later.
Yeah, but it comes down to this. What is the reality? Is the reality is that how do we fix it? Because it seems like we all understand the problem is the same. How do we fix this problem? Chris, what do you think are some of the solutions?
Well, I think that we start by first not conflating certain issues. The notion saying that stop labeling us black on black crime is a separate issue from how do we stop the problem in our community. I don't like people trying to advertise us as being or portray us as being some sort of wild animal, but at the same time we can stop the, hey, let's try to solve this problem because they're going to use this reason that you're doing this thing to fuck you up. Okay, so you can't do that anymore. And we have to. The thing is, if it's issues of survival, crimes that I'm selling this so I can feed my kids. We have to find a way to make these people whole. Now, I don't know how you do that, but a lot of these crimes they're crimes over, I think I'm better than you, or you said something about me, petty shit, and people get shot.
Right.
And then there's, I need to feed my kids. If you get rid of that and shore that up, you won't have these other problems, because when you're hungry and you're trying to feed your kids, every little slight against you is magnified 1,000-fold. And that's where you get these extremely violent reactions to things that are essentially trivial or petty. I don't know how you approach it from that angle, but I think that's where we need to go with it. I'm just not an expert enough to be articulate what we need.
What about you, Em? Solutions, baby.
What? Solutions to us?
What solution to the problem of this perceived inequity in the system? Are we talking reparations? Are we talking?
Ain't gonna be no.
What do you think solutions are? Look what happened with the Japanese during World War II. They gave them reparations. Is that something that has to happen?
They didn't really get a Japanese reparations. They actually just fixed up what they did. They didn't really get real reparations. The Jews got reparations. Jews definitely got it. But reparations, just being on the real, we've had different people, different sects from the Nation of Islam, Lost Foundation of Islam, been actually trying to get reparations from the UN for the last 40 years. I don't see that as a reality, so I'm not going to keep looking towards it. People like Farrakhan and other people have been shooting the UN for years. This is a old subject, and you have people actually been going to the UN with it. I don't see that happening. So let's talk about something that may be real solutions. I don't think there's no one particular solution. Of course it's not. But I think the only thing that could actually help us even going into a better direction is number one, not just education, but in this country, which is a fixed political country, which is a corporation, this country being a corporation, the main thing that we need to do as a whole, or even as pieces of a whole, because one thing about it, Black people is not one big monolithic group, and it ain't gonna happen. Everybody ain't gonna get along with each other, but we need to get financially educated. That'll take you so far, man, just being financially educated. Secondly, fathers, Black men, we need to be more fathers to our kids. We need to actually teach our sons and daughters how to maneuver in this system. Stop trying to sell them bad ideas. Like you don't have, like the Moors, like these religious clowns, telling them, the white man is this. We don't have to have license. Selling these guys bad ideas. You don't have to pay taxes. Listen, we got to stop doing all this dumb shit. Teaching our kids this dumb shit. As long as we're in this country, obviously you're gonna follow by these wicked rules, whether it's true or not. Whether we straw men or whatever we are, you need to learn this system. People say, well, credit is a scam, Emperor Atheist. I know that. I understand that credit is a scam, but we need to follow this scam and learn the scam. They say, well, Emperor Atheist, IRS is not a real entity. I know that. I understand that. I understand that there's no law to tell us that we have to pay taxes, but your ass better pay taxes, because some kind of way they gonna get you. It ain't no paperwork you can show me. Ain't no paperwork. Ain't no lawsuits.
Listen,
y'all went in and
ask Wesley Snipes if there's a law that says you have to pay taxes, right?
God,
ask Al Capone. They couldn't get him on anything but taxes, right? Ask him if there's a law that says you got to pay taxes.
Whether it's illegal or not, or whether this country, they have a law for it, we know that it's fake. We understand that. But this is where we at. So we got to learn how to roll with the snakes. This is what Black people need to do. Stop asking for shit. And we need to learn how to roll with the snakes and learn their system, man. And use it against them. All the rest of it is BS. And y'all already know about the religious part of it. You know how we feel about that. Religion is definitely a handicap for us. So we don't even have to mention religion. We already know that's a retardation. But I mean, we need to financially. We need to learn about credit. We need to learn how to fix our FICO score. We need to understand real estate. We need to understand gardening. We need to get back into how grandfathers used to plant gardens and stop falling for this fake ass government organic shit. Government trying to, tell us how to grow foods and do. We need to get back to those simple things of independence, basically, and stop thinking some goddamn politician gonna save our ass, because you might as well be waiting on Jesus. If you think Obama, if you think this Republican, if you think a party gonna help you, you crazy. I don't care what you say. You think the Democrats love you? They don't. We just got to wake up in a lot of different areas and actually just face reality, man. I mean, simple as that.
Hey, amen to that. I definitely
I do have
reality, man, brother.
I think I agree with something you said about not necessarily want to ask things. I do believe in some sort of entrepreneurship. I was raised in a family with my grandfather. He started a business. It ran for most of my life until he just retired and couldn't do it anymore. I wasn't interested in that business. I had my own thing I wanted to do, but he always tried to set me towards things that I could sell outside of having to 9 to 5. Now I work my 9 to 5, but I still do my side work. I make my side money. I'm still a construction worker. There's things I know how to do outside of work, and I'm still going to hustle.
Multitasking.
Exactly. We need to treat these like now. My mom, she's wanted me to go work for somebody else. Yeah. And I hated that. But how do you have your father doing this and you just want to go run? She wanted to be a nurse. That's fine. But I didn't want to necessarily do that. And we were constantly at odds over things I wanted to do versus what she wanted me to do. And I think that happens a lot in our community. People want to choose the safest things to do. And that's fine. Do the safe thing, but do the safe thing that supports your side hustle that can make you some real money. You're not going to make it too far with a 9 to 5.
Right.
That's not the way it works. And too many of us, even the ones who we go to school, we get those degrees, we still go and work for somebody else. And we really do money with ourselves.
That's terrible.
Hey, Chris.
Earlier,
hold on. Can I ask Chris a question?
Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask this, Chris.
Go ahead.
Earlier today, because we're going to just run to the next segment so we could get out. Chris, earlier today you were saying that today you said you were an atheist, and I want to ask you, because there's like a little debate going on now between the word atheist. Are you a person who says you lack belief in a God, or you disbelieve in a God, or are you one that says you believe no gods exist?
We might say I waffle on that. It depends on how you see it. As far as belief, I don't think there's a God. No, there's just no evidence. There's nothing showing me there. Now, is there some chance there's something that could come out of the ether that has attributes none of us could sense? And so, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Maybe there's a 0.1,000,000% chance that this thing could be true. But in my everyday life, no. I don't feel any obligation to believe it or tell anybody I do. I'm not going to be rude about it, but you haven't shown me anything that tells me this is something I need to believe in, other than rhetoric and threat that if I don't do it, all this bad shit's going to happen to me. That's not enough. It's just not enough. So, skip on down the street with that. I don't really need it in my life. All I see is torment and pain and lies and people getting hurt behind these churches, rumor milling and all types of shit. What happens positive in these churches half the time? I don't really see it. All this gossiping. Hell, I've seen people play numbers in the goddamn feuds, man. It's like, what? What are you doing? It's just a social gap. You're not yelling about who's doing what in the goddamn church.
So have you not believed like for a long time, or were you once a believer and you changed your tune? Like what brought you to this point?
I moved away from a lot of my friends and family when I was around 34, 35. It was a short period of time, but it allowed me to be alone with my own thoughts and not have people trying to pressure me. I stopped going to church long before that, but you still got people on your head. Why don't you come to church? You're such a nice guy and all this other stuff, and you're a good person, and go do this, and you can come over to church and help us with that. And it's like, no, you're not going to use me, you know, for free labor and all this other stuff because I have skill. You know, that's what it was going to lead to. And I'm like, no, I'm not really going for that. Now, as far as just church in general, I saw everything going on in the church. I saw everything that you wasn't supposed to be doing going on in the church. Things that were completely against what you telling me God's supposed to be. So if you can't be bothered, fine. You know, I'm gonna do what the hell I want. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. Doing what I want, people always think it's the worst thing ever. No, I just want to do what I want, and it's not what you want. You know, all I see is religious people just trying to talk down to people. I don't want to be like that.
Well, hey, listen, man. I agree with the sentiment that I don't believe there's any proof that this thing exists. And I think Emperor would say the same thing. As I've seen absolutely no proof whatsoever, not a stitch of evidence. I've seen a lot of people say stuff, and I've seen a lot of people write stuff down, and I've read a lot of books that say kind of crazy stuff, but it just doesn't. It makes no sense to me. Nobody can even describe what this thing is. It's just something that's undescribable. That's all powerful. It's just it seems made up.
See, this is why, and this is why. I mean, it's not a big dis, but this is why I don't even recognize agnostics at all. But this is why atheists should hold their atheism, as a proposition, because just what Nate just said, what Nate just said describes non-cognitivism, and what non-cognitivism is in philosophy is when you claim you believe in something, as theists claim to believe in this God, but yet when we ask you to define this God, no one in the history of religion, in the history of Christianity, Islam, whatever other religion you want to name, Sikhism, Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, no one has gave a coherent definition of a God. That means this is a non-cognitive term, which we have no reason to even accept, to go further even into recognizing or respecting this hypothesis. This is why in my proposition, I don't say I lack belief. I think that's a stupid definition. I ain't gonna call it stupid, but I just don't think it's a coherent definition. I lack, because lacking seems like it's lacking itself just to say that. This is why I say there are no gods, period. Because I'm answering the question, which is an old metaphysical question, an ancient metaphysical question. How did we get here? What is God? And the question, the theism is it's the direct, because in theism is a proposition which says there are gods, period. It's not something that says we think there are gods. It's not something to say there may be a God. The ether might be God, what Christians said. But theism says there are gods, or there is a God. Specifically their own personal God. This prime mover, this unmovable mover, this first cause, they particularly make it their Christian God, the Islamic God. Depending on who you're discussing it with. Whoever they think the prime mover is their particular personal God, which we know is stupid and they can't predicate that. We understand that. But this is why I think the atheists should hold their position as a direct answer to theism. Theism says there are gods. Atheism says there are no gods. Atheism doesn't say, well, there's no evidence, so we can believe. That's not what atheism is. Atheism says, period. So that's where I stand. And when I debate it, that's how I debate it. Then people say, well, atheists, how do you know 100% fact that there are no gods? Just like I know, and everybody else know 100% fact, that we have natural causes. Everything that we've seen, everything that we've observed in the universe has always been caused by natural causes. The universe is an effect of a natural cause. We've never seen anything outside of natural causes. So what reason would we have to accept a fairy, a god, a super? Why would we have to insert a supernatural entity into any equation when everything that we've observed from cause and effect has always been natural causes? We've never observed anything that we have a reason to believe that people have rose from the dead. We have no reason to believe that that there's some entity that can exist outside of time and space and make miracles happen, turn water into wine. So this is why I think the proposition of atheism is the best way to hold is, hey, period. There are no gods, because there's so many problems within that. In theism, just saying there are gods, you have to predicate which one created the universe, which one created us, and that's an issue when you can't prove these particular things, when you can't show me that Yahweh of the Bible is the prime mover. Even if we was to, just for the sake of argument, say, okay, we believe there's a God. Now you have the theists still have a problem. They have to show which one. You can't tell me, well, our Bible, we have originals, is more realer than the Quran. That's a problem. So that's an issue. This is why we should just throw all this stuff in the trash, because no one can say that their God is better than another God. So this is why the atheists should hold their position as a proposition. There are no gods, period.
Well, one thing, and this is where I'm going to disagree. I do agree that there are no gods. I would say, if someone was asking me, are there gods, I would say there's a high likelihood or high probability that there are no gods. I'm going to say yes. Right. I don't believe there are no gods. But the difference between lacking a belief, which I subscribe to, versus assuming it as a proposition, is really the burden of proof. That's what you're talking about, the burden of proof. And you seem to say that you've suggested that you have satisfied that burden of proof by answering the questions by saying, this God doesn't exist in some way or something. You've answered the burden of proof. This is where we get confused. All right, because by saying you accept atheism as a proposition, you're saying that you accept the burden of proof that there are no gods. So if somebody says God X exists, you're saying that God doesn't exist, and you can prove that God doesn't exist. That's what
that's not how atheism is. That's not how it works.
All right.
As answering to theism say there are gods, and atheists say there are no gods. We don't have to have a burden of proof. We only have to have a burden of justification. You have to justify as to why you say there are no gods.
All right, so it's not a burden. That's our miscommunication, because if you're taking a truth value on a proposition, this proposition is true. There are no gods. If you're saying that's true, when you say that's true, that encompasses a burden to prove that proposition is true. Just like if I say gods exist, then and if I'm saying that's true, then I assume a burden of proof to proving that proposition to be true. And you're asking the theist to prove their proposition to be true, but then saying you don't have to prove yours to be true because you're taking it as a proposition.
No, you still missed it. So there's a difference between burden of proof.
Well,
because we are in the second order. When we say there are no gods, we're saying there are no gods as in the second order of answering the theism, which says there are gods. So now, to ask the second order to bear a burden of proof when the first order hasn't been bared is not how it works. So only thing I have to do is justify why I reject the first proposition. I don't have to have a burden of proof to reject the first proposition, because the first proposition hasn't been shown. So now if the first proposition shows and say, hey, this is our evidence for God, then I have a burden of proof to show, or a burden to show why I reject this evidence or so-called evidence that you have.
That's a burden of justification.
I don't necessarily have a burden of proof, because that burden of proof haven't been met in the first place.
All right. So I think we're getting conflated, because, and I think it's the terminology going down. If you think about it in this way, let's say we have a jar of gumballs, and in those gumballs, in that jar, it's whatever, however many gumballs in it. It's like one of those games where you like guess the number. Right. Now it's true that in that jar of gumballs, it's going to be either odd or even. The number of gumballs in that jar is going to be either odd or even.
That's true. So
there's one proposition that the gumballs are even, yes or no, right? Somebody can say yes, they're even, and no, they're not even. So the person who says yes, that they're even, has the burden to prove, like, why do you believe they're even? He can say, I counted them, whatever, but he has the burden to prove that they're even, right?
Right.
Let's say then someone says, well, they are not even. And I believe that's true. Then the person who says they're not even would also bear a burden to prove, well, how do you know they're not even? I counted them. They're not even, right?
Here's the thing.
And just hold on, just to be finished. Now, not even is equivalent to being odd, but if they're not even, they're odd. So that's why I'm saying in both those situations, what I'm saying is that if you're taking the proposition of them being even as true, God existing being true, and you're saying no, you're taking the proposition of God not existing to be true, then you have the burden to prove that proposition. You don't even have to hear what God the theist is even talking about, because you've already accepted the propositionally that whatever they're going to say is false, and you already have the proof to prove that they're false. It doesn't even matter what they say.
Well, go ahead, Chris, because that's easy to answer. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I don't necessarily know if I'm going to attack it from that direction. The thing is with the proof of God, and people want to prove there's a God. Okay, you take these situations, they're proofs of God individual, and you investigate them. And then you say, okay, we can measure it, try and quantify it. Let's look at this. Did it come back to being something normal, everyday thing, or is it just a fantastic thing? Every time, it's a normal, mundane thing. And then we go to the next, and then we go to the next thing. After you get so many negatives to these claims, then you're pretty comfortable in saying, okay, this thing isn't real. We've done all these tests, or we've read about them, they come back with the same result. You test these things again, you come back with the same result. This thing isn't there. So all these evidences you have leading back to this supreme deity that you have seems to be lacking. You know, and how many times do we have to go through these same things over and over again? How many times I got to hear that this boat is at the top of Mount Ararat and there's nothing up there? How many times I got to hear about a worldwide flood and there's no evidence?
Right.
You know, at a certain point, I can say, yes, there's no evidence to your claim. Until you have something there, like you're saying, you know, the odd or even marbles in the jar. Hell, they don't even have any fucking marbles in the jar to count. You know, and that's what we're dealing with. There's nothing there for them to show other than rhetoric.
Yeah, we don't even have marbles. You're right. We don't even have marbles in the jar. So I think that's you're right. You're right, Chris. Where are the marbles at? I mean, let's use that marble thing again. Let's say, let's put it another way, Nate. You know, you're good with P. You know, P equals P. You know what I'm saying? Let's do this another way. You know, let's try to use some, I guess, laws of logic or dealing with God, dealing with it.
All right, so we can do a lot. We can do. I don't know. Do you want to do a logic chain? Like, for
let's do a lot. Let's do that, because we're talking about a deity. We're talking about a God. Let's do this first, Nate. Let's do this first, Nate. We're talking about a deity that is all knowing. He surpasses all our knowledge. He. I don't know how we got the he, but some kind of way we even made it a pronoun. We gave it a pronoun. So this means this thing has an identity, right? Right? Am I right, Nate?
Yeah. No, you're right.
Isn't the law of identity one of the main laws? Of, the law of identity, the law of logic.
You talking about the yeah. Well, if you're talking about the now you got me missing it, but yeah, it's the Damn, it's Matt Slick says it all the time now. Now I don't know what it's.
Well, you know,
but I know exactly you're talking about.
Right, and Matt Slick is a dodo bird, by the way. But the
laws of logic, yeah.
Right, the laws of logic. We have these major. So we're talking about identity. Then the Christians, the Muslims, and the Jews have identified this deity as a he. They gave it a pronoun. First of all, that's the first error they made. Okay. Secondly, they say that this God knows all things. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know how human. They said this deity knows all things. This knowledge compasses all things. First of all, Nate, how do they know that?
Yeah.
If they know this about this deity and they have identified this deity as a he, then why don't we have any? And I want to say this for the audience: there is a difference between evidence and proof. There is a difference between a burden of proof and burden of justification. Atheists are justified in 2018, all the thousands of years of claims of God. Atheists are justified and should have a burden of justification. They are justified to say there are no gods, not just to say we just don't believe because y'all ain't brought no proof, or we just ain't seen it, or we ain't heard it. But atheists are justified to say there are no gods.
But hold on, but you literally just said that you're justified in saying that there were no gods because of the lack of evidence, and you literally went through a colloquially.
No, I didn't say lack. I didn't say lack of evidence. I said no evidence.
There's absolutely no evidence, right?
See, that's
the lack of
evidence
is no evidence, though.
There's a difference. There's a difference. No, lack. No. See, I'm glad you said that. Let me explain this. When we say lack of something,
okay.
Lacking. When you look up the term, just look up the term lacking in any dictionary you want to look up. But I can say I'm lacking in my homework. That don't mean I ain't doing some of my homework, or I'm lacking in my exercises, or I'm lacking. That means you actually could be doing some things. You're just lacking in it, normally what you've been doing. Or I'm lacking in certain things that I used to do. I'm lacking in this. I'm lacking in that.
No, like if I say, I don't know. If I say I'm lacking water. Does that mean so you're saying I have water, or I might not have enough water, or something like that?
That's right. That's
I might have a small amount, but I don't have.
That's what I'm trying to explain to you. Lacking doesn't explain a lot. Lacking could mean that there is something there, but it's just not enough.
I'm not. I don't know if I go with that, because I think if I say I'm lacking a belief in something, it just seems like I don't believe that thing.
Look up the term lacking.
Or maybe disbelief may be a better term to use. But
yes, I think so.
If I lack a belief, that means I don't believe.
How can you lack a belief though? Why you don't?
I don't believe. I lack beliefs in fairies. I lack beliefs in a lot of things. I don't lack. I don't believe them.
Why you can't just disbelieve it?
Why don't I disbelieve it?
Yeah, why you can't just disbelieve? Why you got to lack a belief?
Well, I lack belief in it because I don't know for a fact. I always leave open to the possibility that these things could exist. There's certain things that I can deductively. There's certain things that I can deductively say don't exist. Square circles don't exist. For instance.
So I'm glad you said that.
There are certain. Hold on, let me finish. There are certain things that I can say definitively do not exist.
Like
square
what?
Circles, for instance, they don't exist.
Who?
But squared circles. A squared circle does not exist.
Okay.
Because they're a contradiction in terms. And let's say if I'm looking for some, Muslims in the Senate, like William Lane Craig says, I can prove that they don't exist because I can evaluate it. Okay, there's no Muslim, nobody professes to be a Muslim in the Senate, so obviously more Muslims in the Senate. That's another thing I can prove. But something that's possible, rationally, I can't prove that doesn't exist. If somebody says some super being that lives on TRAPPIST-1 exists, and they say for me to prove that it doesn't exist, there's no evidence I can prove because, number one, they haven't given me evidence, and number two, this thing, even though it's possible for it exist, the probability of that thing existing is almost minuscule, none. So I just feel justified in saying I lack belief in your claim until you can give me sufficient evidence to prove that thing exists. Period.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying, and that's why I think you keep getting confused as actually the word in philosophy. Because when you say that somebody can just say that there's this big supreme being, but I don't have evidence to disprove it, so I just lack belief in it. I don't think that's a good justification. But I understand where you're coming from. But if you tell me something, just like you said you certain things that you can prove don't exist. Well, let me explain something to you. This is why when you go to the Bible or the Quran, when you talk about a God, just from the scriptures, just from the Bible itself, when you talk about a God that is all loving, right? These are the theological terms that Christians give to their particular deities. We talk about a God that's all loving, because you just mentioned square circle, right, Nate?
Yeah.
And so you said square circles don't exist. Circular triangles don't exist. So if you have a deity that has been not only identified as a male, okay, and at the same time you're saying this deity is all loving, omnibenevolent, and you're saying he's all powerful, omnipotent, and you're also saying he's omniscient, all knowing. And when you read the Bible and you read the Quran, the Rig Vedas, I'm not just picking on the Christians, you read the Rig Vedas, you read a lot of the Vedic scriptures, which they're more spiritual to me. They have a lot of more meaning than the Bible. But when you say a God like this, you put qualifiers on this particular specific unmovable mover that you say you believe in. And you say that he's all love, but yet all of the suffering that you see in the world, all of the killings, and you say that he's all powerful, that's a contradiction that you can't that's a square circle. Because if you have a God that's all loving and all powerful, then he has the power to stop the things. He can't be all love if there's a lot of hate and crazy things going on. And he can't be all knowing if he's just going all of a sudden just he knows the future. He knows who's going to hell. He knows who's going to heaven. These are square circles within theological terms, which make these terms non-cognitive.
You know what? I think I can see where our issue is now. It's actually not. It's more with the difference between global and local atheism. Because, like, for instance, the God that you just explained, the one that is a contradiction, I'm atheistic toward that in the sense I accept the proposition that God probably doesn't exist. But I am not a global atheist where, you know, somebody can believe there's some particular God, or they can define God in a way where I would say, you know, if they define gods to be trees in nature, like some of the Native Americans do, then I can say, okay, well, that God exists, but maybe it just doesn't relate to the same way I'm thinking about what a God is. You know, nature's a God to me. You know what I mean? Something like that. But you know, I'm saying, and I think that's where our confusion is. So global atheism, I think, is irrational. I don't think you can be a global atheist because obviously you haven't even heard of all the God concepts to really say that they don't exist. But I think you can be a local atheist in the sense of, yes, propositionally, this God absolutely does not exist. I agree with that.
And this is the point I've always made. I am a propositional atheist locally. Because even though I've studied religion, I've been to school for religion, I have a bachelor's degree in theological studies, I still haven't studied every deity in the world. But I'm gonna tell you this, because Africa alone has over 5,000 deities. But let's do a little more deductive reasoning even on that.
Well, hold on. But before you move from that point, do you lack belief in those gods that you don't know? Or do you or do you believe that they don't exist?
I don't lack belief in a damn thing when it comes to God. See,
so you believe even those gods that you haven't heard of, you believe they don't exist.
Yes, and I'm going to explain this to you. Now, when I argue my proposition of atheism, it's locally against what gods? Mainly the Abrahamic gods, which is Judaism, Islam, Christianity. Christianity being the biggest religion in the world, which is basically the religion that runs the world now. So my proposition of atheism is mostly argued against, and yours too, and all those on this channel. We mostly debate against Christians and Muslims, Black Jews,
Yeah.
So this is local atheism, which I hold as a proposition, and I think you do too.
Yes, I do. I agree.
Okay, so we agree on that.
Yeah.
Now let's get to global atheism. Now, this is the argument here. We say, well, we think that Yahweh and Allah are square circles, and we basically show that just through their own theology, that these are square circles through the scripture, through the Quran, through the ayats. But how about the deity in somewhere in the jungles of Amazon that we've never heard of?
The Native American deity, or the ones that we've never heard of, whichever.
Okay, the Native American deity.
But their deity is actually just nature. That some of the tribes just consider it to be nature. So that's why.
Well, okay. On these particular deities, I will only use deductive reason. I'm not going to even be agnostic towards it. People say, "Well, are you agnostic toward aliens?" No, not really. I'm not. Aliens may exist. I'm not necessarily agnostic towards it, but maybe I am agnostic toward aliens. I think we're agnostic. I think everybody is agnostic to something, but I don't use the term agnostic as it pertains to any deity, because I don't think agnosticism fits that. I don't think agnosticism has a dog in any fight when it comes to the question of does this God exist or does this God don't exist. So I don't consider myself agnostic. Maybe I'm agnostic toward aliens, green men coming.
Well, I would suggest you would say aliens. You lack belief aliens exist, right? Because
I can say that.
Right?
I can say that.
So I'm trying to figure out how come you lack belief in aliens, but then you don't lack belief.
I don't lack belief in aliens. I don't know if they exist or not.
Yeah, but that's lacking your belief.
No, that's not lacking belief. That's agnostic. I just told you, that's agnostic. That's not lacking a belief.
Yeah, agnostic lack belief in the alien.
Where did this definition?
Well, isn't there something, a piece you're missing there? One is a little more plausible than the other.
Right.
Aliens out there because we're here.
That's right.
There's many different type of life forms on just this planet and many different environments. So it's at least plausible to say near some sort of place that has hot vents and a lot of water, maybe there's some form of life there. Whether it's intelligent or not is a whole nother question.
But you can make that deduction.
That's very plausible.
But the issue is too, it could be unique. It could be a unique circumstance, that's highly rare. You're right, but we only have a sample size of one. I would say if we were able to have a larger sample size and say, okay, life seems to be either frequent or infrequent based on the sample size of planets, and we see that in this range of stars there are no other Earths.
That's right.
But we're not able to see that. We only really have a sample size of one planet that has life on it in our own solar system. So with that, I don't think we could extrapolate that it's got to be common. I think. I think life on other planets is probably out there. Yes, I think if the conditions are right, and Earth just happen to be lucky, and trillions of planets, I think yes, you're right. But I don't think you can make that assumption based on a sample size of one.
But Nate, honestly, I think we can extrapolate that, because if you think about just our little bitty galaxy, and just like Chris said, it's aliens, or whatever we want to call aliens. We call Mexican aliens, but whatever we want to call aliens to this planet, aliens is not really an explained term either. So you get caught up in these dogmatic terms, really mean nothing. But let's just say intelligent life. Intelligent life on other planets is way more plausible than any type of God belief, because when you look at the Milky Way galaxy, and like you just said, our Earth. We understand this through astrophysics. We understand this through, geobiology, biology, that life on this planet started through the process of sunlight, water, Scientists, we call the Earth what we call a Goldilocks zone planet, meaning Goldilocks, where they get the term Goldilocks from the story the porridge was too warm, one was too hot. So, so in other words, the Earth sits in a perfect distance that it can form
liquid water.
Right. Now think about this. When you talk about the Milky Way, you're talking about one of the smallest galaxies in our cluster of galaxies. Andromeda being the biggest galaxy in our cluster. And we're talking about a cluster, which is a cluster of about 14 or 15 galaxies. That's just one cluster amongst millions.
There are billions and billions of galaxies out there. I agree with you.
Okay,
but the numbers is crazy.
But this is the point I'm making. About that. Okay, our knowledge hasn't reached basically past. We haven't got out of our galaxy yet. The point I'm making is, if the Earth is in a Goldilocks zone, and all of the planets and we know math don't lie. Math is, I'm sure, math and logic is the same across the board all the way throughout this universe. Just through probability alone, I'm sure we can extrapolate that there has to be life on other planets, because Earth cannot be, just by probability alone, the only rock that sits in a so-called Goldilocks zone, just because of, like you said, all of the billions of planets and billions of suns. So it's very plausible. It would be stupid for anybody to say, whether you're apes or not.
But that would only be one. That would only be one aspect of it. That could be one step in a process, something that has to happen. For instance, if there's a planet that they just found, TRAPPIST-1, and they found 3 planets within the Goldilocks zone, rocky, Earth-sized worlds within the Goldilocks zone. But there were other factors that kind of would rule them out. Number one, they're tidally locked. Number two, that star is very active, so it has a lot of solar winds and things of that nature, and a lot of flares. So likely that those stars would be, and they're a lot closer to their star because the star is a cooler star. So just because, yes, there are maybe a lot of planets within the Goldilocks zone, I do agree. But the circumstances that propelled life could be something that's unique. That could have been a happenstance of a lot of different events that are just so unique that it just happened in this one spot. That's why it's always That's when you have a sample size of 1. We could have hit the lottery. This could be a lottery hit. Somebody will hit the lottery. I do doubt it. I doubt it.
There's no numbers.
But
there's no way.
Right now, you're extrapolating all of this off of a sample size of 1, which could be the 1 in a trillion chance. And now you're saying there's other ones out there. And I do agree. It's more reasonable to think that this has happened again and again and again. But you would have to convince me that we're more familiar with the process to make that leap.
Well, I mean, how could you even deduct that this could be 1 in a trillion?
No, I'm saying I just don't know. I would say if there was some proof that, like, say, if they looked at another asteroid or something and found, cells or something on it or something like that, or they can find out panspermia, or life is just frequent, then I understand. Give me a bigger sample size than just one planet.
But listen to what I'm saying. But you making it.
You also have to look at the diversity on that one planet as well.
Right. Exactly.
Different environs on Earth. That one you could make the deduction that if there's something that works this way, just like I said, I mentioned volcanic vents, that type of event and what causes it has to exist on other planets. And I'm not talking about just human life. I'm talking about ones that exist, like hot, where there's no oxygen, really. There's none of the things that we usually think that are conducive to life. And they exist around these things. Of course, on other planets with tectonic plates and hot cores, there has to be something similar to that event somewhere else. But it may necessarily be, life may not necessarily have to start on a rocky planet.
Exactly.
On a watery planet.
But this
sort of gaseous atmosphere that we haven't encountered yet.
Right.
I just don't know if you guys were able to convince me that it's a common process that happens throughout the universe.
But see, that's the thing.
Process, I would believe you guys. But only thing I'm saying is that we are not familiar with the process yet. And what you're saying makes sense. But that doesn't mean that it's common.
70 years old.
Listen, Nate.
Programs are still in infancy.
Right. That's not how science works, Nate.
Information in that time.
So I think Emperor's trying to.
Go ahead. That's not how science works, Nate. If we know for a fact that Earth has life on it, then it's happened one time. That means in this particular possible world, that means it happened in another possible world. Now, why did we get on this particular conversation? Because we were talking about global atheism. Now, have you found me one God that we can even extrapolate that other gods may exist? Have you found me one God?
A God that may exist?
Yeah. Have you found me one?
Oh, no, I don't know of any God.
Okay, but we found you life on this particular planet, carbon-based life. We found you life. Mm-hmm. So to say that we have to prove to you that it's common, we don't have to prove to you that it's common because it's happened one time. We know that evolution is real. We see that we are here. We don't have to actually show you that it's a common thread. But now I don't want to get too far from what we were talking about and why we got off into that. Mm-hmm. We were talking about aliens and we were talking about life.
Yeah.
So back to the global atheism. Mm-hmm. The reason that we can basically reject all deities, I don't care what the Indians say about nature and all this shit. We study nature. We understand nature. We've seen nothing godlike, or whatever definition you want to give of God or netter or whatever you want to call it God. We've seen nothing about nature that we would have to add or insert a term like God in. So when the Indians, when the Hopi Indians or the Sioux Indians or whoever they say that thunder was a god, or they say that nature is our God, or the pantheists, we have no reason at all to accept their God either, period. Because we haven't had one sample, I'm gonna use your term, sample of any deity, of anything natural that would act as a deity or would act as some type of agent that has some type of supernatural powers. We have no reason whatsoever to even guess it, or lack of belief of it, or any of that. We have no reason to do that.
But I don't know. I would say this. If somebody comes up to me and says a God exists, no, I'm just being honest with you. Somebody comes to me and says a God exists, my first question is, okay, I don't believe you. Now, do I have a burden to justify? Hold on. Let me. No, I'm saying if they just say a God exists, I'll say I don't believe them. If you don't provide me any evidence or even definition or anything, my natural reaction is I don't believe you. Now, if you say I have to justify why I don't believe you, my justification is in the evidence that you provided me. If you provide me nothing, my justification is nothing because you provided me nothing to justify. Right? If you provide me nothing to justify, then how can I justify it? Right? So if you tell me God exists, then I have no burden.
That's what Christopher Hitchens said.
But hold on. So my position is and that's why I keep saying my position. I lack belief in what you're saying because you provided me no evidence, so there's nothing for me to justify at that particular point. Now, if that person then wants to provide me some evidence, this book, the Bible, this personal revelation, whatever this stuff, I evaluate each one of those and say this is the reason why these personal revelations is wrong. This is the reason why I don't believe this book, and this is the reason why I don't believe these happenstance realities that you're telling me about.
So I don't believe have that burden of justification.
And I'm telling you why I don't believe each one of these things. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe any of those support your proposition. But now, because the Bible is false and this is false and this is false, does that mean no God exists? No, I can't say that. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying what you present me is bullshit, and I don't believe that one exists. But I'm not saying that the other stuff could not exist. That other stuff could exist. These gods I don't know about. The way somebody's describing them, if they describe it as this versus that versus this, I'm saying I don't believe none of that. But if somebody comes to me and presents a coherent, something that I can understood, something that I can logically deduce that thing exists, and they call it God, like, if they call it table God or a tree God, then I'll say, guess what? That God exists. But I'm not defining what their God is or telling them that, there's got to be mystical or this. If they say,
hey, listen, I got to go, man.
That's their God.
Hey, listen, I got to go in a minute, man. But listen, do you think Zeus? Do you think Zeus exists? Are you a local atheist when it comes to Zeus and Aphrodite?
Yes. I don't believe any of those. I don't believe Zeus exists. I don't believe these gods exist because they've been defined and people have told me what they are and shown me the proof that these gods exist, and I reject that proof. I don't believe they exist. I believe.
Okay.
I believe
so basically, every god that you could hear of, or anyone that's been in any comic book, whether it's Thor, Odin, you reject all of them, along with Yahweh, Jesus. You're a local atheist towards all of them.
Yeah, Chris, what about you? Chris, are you a local atheist to all of them, or what? You don't believe any of those?
The local atheist thing, global thing is a little above my pay grade, and I don't like this talking about that. I'm not one of those. I want to shoot my mouth off about shit I don't know about. I have not enough information to even make give an opinion on that at the time.
I hear you. But listen, let's get out of here because Imp's got to go. Listen, I want to thank everybody for joining us. We had a lot of people watching. We have 26 people watching. Not bad. Thanks again for watching. Jesus is Lord. We see you in the chat, chatting hard. That's like our number one fan right there. Jesus is Lord. Yeah. But don't worry. We like having you in.
He be getting slayed, though, man. They be slaying him. They be slaying him.
But listen, I want to thank everybody for showing up, and we are going to see you next time on the Three Black Heathens Show.
Thank you for having me.
And I want to thank my guest, Chris. Chris, tell the people where they can find you at.
Oh, man. Well, I do have a channel, Grand Ultimate Atheist Villain. Like I said, there's not much going on over there. But once I get tooled up, you will be seeing a separate fabrication channel that will have nothing to do with religion whatsoever.
Yo, don't forget for those of you who haven't been, hit the subscribe button for our channel and for Chris's channel. And
hit the like button too.
Oh yeah. Show us you like our stuff. And listen, next week hopefully we'll have something. We'll have Drag back, and for Emperor Atheist and Chris Vaughn. I will see you guys next time.